Hello everyone. So today I'm gonna do another random video, and this video I've been meaning to make for quite some time now, and pretty much So pretty much like I said, one thing I should mention is that the point of this video is, well, this is basically a prediction video. Since if you can tell by the title, basically this video will be about my predictions for Man vs. Train 4. Now, for those of you who don't know, Man vs. Train is made by MASH, and they made the first 3 already, and according to MASH, in the comments of the third one, they confirmed that they're making a 4th one in February. And since today is the last day for January, and since February is coming up, I figured now would be a good time to do that. But you get what I'm saying. So yeah, so pretty much yeah. So also, by the way, I'm sorry if I'm getting more words mixed up, but I figured I'd mention that. So yeah, so pretty much yeah. Now without further ado, like I said, I figured I'd mention that. So yeah, so pretty much yeah. Also a little side note. I made redubs of the first 2 Man vs. Trains, and I'm coming out with a third Man vs. Train redub. And of course, when the 4th one comes out, I'll see about doing a redub of that. But for now, I figured to mention that. So yeah, so pretty much yeah. Now without further ado, let's get on to my predictions, shall we? So as you can see from my first predictions, as you can see, I have some characters, more specifically, some shows. That's what I meant to say. I have some shows here that I feel like that could work in these videos that I would honestly like to see. Since for those of you who don't know, I think I might have heard about this before. How for Men vs. Train, they used shows that Hit Entertainment made, and of course, for Men vs. Train, they have Thomas, they have Postman Pat, they even have Brum and Bob the Builder, which, from what I've heard, and I guess according to other people, all 4 of them are made by Hit Entertainment. So that's why I figured that when I think about some other Hit Entertainment shows that they made that could work, that I would honestly like to see, and these are the ones I saw, and pretty much yeah, and these are the ones I chose that in my opinion I think could work somehow. You know what I'm saying? But pretty much yeah. So as you can see, for the first one we have is Fireman Sam. Now, fun fact: MASH actually made a Fireman Sam video before, which even though it was a rap song, it was still technically a Fireman Sam video since it was animated. But I figured I'd mention that. So yeah, so that's how I think it could work. And since there's humans in these videos, so pretty much yeah. Moving on, as you can see, the next show that I've put in here is Barney, and like I said, at first, a lot of these shows I wasn't sure if Hit Entertainment made, but I guess according to the thing, that's what it said about Barney. So I'm just going by with what it said. And for Barney, I honestly don't know how it would work exactly, but they managed to make Brum work somehow. So I figured, why not? I figured maybe they could try something for Barney. You never know. Anyways, the next show that I'll be talking about, as you can see, is The Wiggles, and same thing with Postman Pat. I'm sorry, same thing with Fireman Sam. Since Fireman Sam and The Wiggles are shows about humans, and since they have humans obviously in these videos, I figured that maybe they could work somehow. But you never know. But pretty much yeah. Anyways, yeah, like I said, moving on. The next show that we have here is quite an interesting one, and that is Kipper the dog, or just Kipper. And one thing I should mention is that this show and the next show are about talking animals. So this one in particular, I'm not really sure how they would accomplish, but I figured that I would include this one as well. Anyways, moving on. Here's the next show that I talked about, and as you can see, this next show is Angelina Ballerina. Now, one thing I should mention is that just like with Kipper, this show is also about talking animals, but I don't know how that would work exactly, since of course the concept with the talking trains, that like I said, they obviously made that work, but for this case of talking animals, I don't know how they would work. I don't know how they would make it work exactly. But furniture. Anyways, last but not least, the final show that I think that would be pretty interesting to see is Rubber Dubbers. Now, this show I actually watched when I was a kid. Actually, I love these shows I watched when I was a kid, but I figured I'd mention that. So yeah, so furniture. But this is another interesting case of I don't know how it would work exactly, but figured that maybe they could try to make it work somehow. I don't know, but you never know. So yeah, so pretty much yeah. So with that, that's pretty much all the shows that I think would be pretty interesting to see. So yeah, so pretty much yeah. So let's move on, shall we? So yeah, so before we move on to the next predictions, I just want to say, hope you guys enjoyed listening to that part, and hope you guys enjoyed seeing those shows. And who knows, maybe a lot of you guys maybe even watched those shows when you were younger too. But I figured I'd mention that. Anyways, I just figured I'd mention that in between. So, anyways, let's move on to something else, shall we? So the next prediction I have for these videos, or for the fourth one, is I have a feeling that we could see more Thomas characters, since even though obviously we've seen Thomas characters in these videos before, but in this case I'm talking about the rest of the Steam team, since for my next Man vs. Train video that I plan to make, I plan to talk about all the Thomas characters that are in Man vs. Train, and in that video I'll talk about the Steam team, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video, but pretty much the Steam team members that I'll talk about in this video, and my next Man vs. Train video. Basically, the Steam team members that appeared in Man vs. Train are Thomas, Henry, Gordon, James, Emily, and pretty much that's it, and also Toby as well. But since in the show, there's technically 14 Steam team members. Like I said, I feel like there's technically 14 Steam team members, since you have the main 12, which goes from Thomas to Emily, and then you also have Nia and Rebecca, who are also a part of the Steam team. So that's why I counted them. But pretty much, yeah. But like I mentioned, those are basically the Steam team characters we got so far. Is Thomas, Henry, Gordon, James, Toby, and Emily. But we didn't get the rest of the Steam team characters, and that's why these next characters I'm going to talk about are the rest of the Steam team characters. And obviously, as you can see right here, we have Edward first, since, you know what I'm saying, like, pretty much out of the main 6, he was one of the only characters that didn't appear, or out of the main Steam team characters, I should say. So that's what pretty much, yeah. Let's move on, shall we? So moving on, next up, as you can see, here's Percy, and just like with Edward, we didn't see him in the first one, or actually, more specifically, we didn't see him in the second one or third one, since, the first Man vs. Train just consists of Thomas as the only Steam team character. But pretty much, yeah. Anyways, moving on. Next up here we have Duck, and pretty much for a lot of these characters, it's like, I just figured I would include them, since, they're part of the Steam team, and I just think it would be pretty cool to see them. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah. Next up here we have is Donald and Douglas. Now these two in particular, I think it would be pretty cool to see, like, a pair of twin characters, since, I'm saying, like, for the openers for Man vs. Train, we haven't really seen any of the twin characters, and pretty much, yeah, I just think it'd be pretty cool. So yeah, so moving on. Moving on, next up here we have is Oliver, and same thing with opener, same thing for the other characters. Since he's a part of the Steam team, I had to include him in this, and pretty much, yeah. Moving on, next up here we have is Nia, and like I mentioned before, since he's a part of the Steam team, I had to include her as well. And moving on. Next up here we have is Rebecca, and Rebecca's actually our final, pretty much Rebecca's our final Steam team character I'll talk about, and one of the final engine characters I'll talk about in this video. However, later on, I do have one more engine I want to talk about, but pretty much, yeah. Anyways, moving on. The second to last Thomas character that I feel like could be an interesting character to see in the next Man vs. Train is Toad, since, like I mentioned Oliver, I think it would be pretty cool to see him there. I figured if they have Oliver, then they should have Toad, and pretty much, yeah. Last but not least, the final Thomas character I'll talk about for now is Henrietta. Also, by the way, that's not entirely true, since I have one more Thomas character I want to talk about in this video, but of course, like I said, we'll pretty much what I'm trying to say is that you'll have to wait a bit to see him, but pretty much, yeah. Anyways, moving on, like I said, one thing I should mention about Henrietta in particular is that for Man vs. Train, we've seen Annie and Clarabelle, and since Annie and Clarabelle Thomas as coaches, but like I mentioned before, we've seen Toby in the third Man vs. Train. I figured it'd be only fitting to have Henrietta be with Toby, but so who knows, maybe we'll see her again, or maybe we'll see her in this. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah, so that's pretty much all the Thomas characters I want to talk about. So yeah, so moving on, shall we? So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed me talking about those Thomas characters, and like I said before, just like with the shows, I think it would be pretty cool to see these characters in particular appear in this. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah. Let's move on to something else, shall we? So the last two characters I'll talk about in this video are actually kind of like bonuses, like bonus characters that I would include. And let's get started, shall we? So as you can see, the first character that I'll talk about is, for this section, is Sir Topham Hatt. And obviously Sir Topham Hatt is the final Thomas character that I mentioned, that I would talk about, that I would like to see, since I feel like Sir Top Hat has to be in one of these at some point, since, you know, he's obviously the controller and stuff, and I don't know how he would react to all this damage to his railway and all this fighting and stuff. I feel like his reaction would be pretty interesting to see. Like I said, so yeah, so furniture, yeah. So yeah, so like I said, as you can see, that was Sir Top Hat, and before I move on to the final character that I'll talk about, I figured I'd mention that, so yeah, so pretty much, yeah. So now without further ado, let's get on to the final character, shall we? So the final character that I would like to see and members train for is the Glendale Rocket. Since, for those of you who don't know, the Glendale Rocket is the train from Postman Pat, and since obviously members train is about Postman Pat and Thomas, I figured that it would only be fitting for the Glendale Rocket to make an appearance at some point. Although it probably wouldn't talk or nothing, but I just think in general it would be pretty cool to see, since who knows, maybe it could be a Transformer too, or sorry, Trainsformer. There we go. Like I said, you never know. Like I said, that could be a possibility. But Punisher, so yeah, so Punisher. That's pretty much all the characters I talk about. So yeah, so Punisher. Let's move on, shall we? To wrap up this video, let's give a quick recap, shall we? So let's recap the shows that I talked about. So the shows that I would think would be pretty cool to see for the next Man vs. Train is Fireman Sam, Barney, The Wiggles, Kipper the Dog, Angelina Ballerina, and Rubber Dubbers. Now for the Thomas characters I talk about. The Thomas characters I think would be pretty cool to see in this are, just to recap, them being Edward, Percy, Duck, Donald, Douglas, Oliver, Nia, Rebecca, Toad, and Henrietta. And last but not least, the final two characters I talked about that I think would be pretty cool to see and that I added in here as well bonus characters are Top Hat and Glendale Rocket. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah, like I said, those are pretty much my predictions for Man vs. Train, and pretty much one of the final things I'll talk about in this video is another thing I would like to see for the next Man vs. Train is I would like to see if maybe they could have more of the Thomas characters talk, since pretty much the only Thomas characters that we actually heard from so far are Thomas, Henry, and Gordon, as well as Harold. Like I said, those are pretty much the only Thomas characters that actually spoke so far. Well, Harold technically didn't really speak. The narrator was speaking for him, of course, but I just figured I'd mention that. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah, like I said. So yeah, but that's what I mean. Like I said, I just think it would be pretty cool to see, or more specifically, hear some of the other Thomas characters talk, but you never know. And yeah, before in this video, there's two things I want to mention. And I haven't said this in for a couple of videos, but I'll say it again. The first thing is that I'm sorry if I accidentally got words mixed up. And second thing is, I'm sorry if I accidentally said something bad about mistake. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah, like I said, it's been a while since I said that, since usually when I say that part, I try to make sure that, like I said, you know what I'm saying, like I try to make sure that I say it right, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah, I figured I mentioned that. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hope you guys enjoy my next Man vs. Train video. So yeah, so pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much all I'm saying. So yeah, thanks for watching, have a good one, bye.